Shabbat Shalom and welcome to Olive Tree Community Spokane. The following recording is from this week's teaching on the Parashat or portion from the Torah. You can find more details on this Parashat and the scriptures being referred to in the pull-down menu below.
I can't remember. It seems like the Korah portion has been the one that I've seen here. We spent a lot of time talking about it. And every year I seem to remember the ones that we do. Many of the other portions, they are like new to me. This one seems to continually address us. And I think it's an important one. The thread of importance in this is the issue of rebellion against the leaders that God chooses for us. And in fact, the first leader that he chose for us was himself. And we rebelled against that. If we read Samuel, which we're going to do, we're going to see a little bit of that. But anyway, the rebellion seems to be birthed out of all different kinds of normal issues in which people's pride is hurt, and people are lust after power and prestige and position, and also lust after the finer portions of life. And it starts off in our portion today. It was started off in 16 here in Numbers. And now Korah, the son of Azar, the son of Konath, the son of Levi. What happens here is that, especially if you go look at the readings of the rabbis, Korah felt that he was the one that was next in line to receive the leadership over the Levites, and he didn't. He was replaced by the son of, I can't remember off the top of my head who it was, but it's a fairly familiar name. But anyway, the point is that Korah complained that he was being stepped over, and so he started to create a defense for himself regarding his complaint and this gathering of the people to his cause. And so it goes from his personal what do you call it? His personal offense. And now what he's trying to do is trying to get other people to take up his offense. So he takes this offense, goes to the people, causes them to take up the offense, and the ultimate issue is that they end up having to answer to the Lord for. At the very top of the decision making was his God in regards to who is to do what. And the Levites were supposed to be happy in the position that they have around the tabernacle. In fact, one thing about Korah is he was one of the carriers of the ark. So among his brethren, he had probably one of the best jobs in the tabernacle. And so he rises and he's here. So he looks at himself in regards to his brother, and he says, "Look, I'm one of the guys that carry the ark. I'm a top dog." The Levites were in charge of the tabernacle and all the things regarding the tabernacle. So they often would have the issues with the priest. The priest used to. The priest received the tithe from the people on behalf of God, and then they tithed to the Levites. So the Levites were a couple of totem poles down from where they were, and so there was a lot of little things sticking in their craw, and Korah took advantage of it. In fact, his name means baldness, and the idea here is that what happened is in his rebellion, a whole section of the people, which might be represented by maybe a full head of hair, were killed by being either dropped into an opening in the ground or killed by plague. In fact, it got so bad that the first complaint was against Moses, that he should be, or Aaron, that he should be in the place of Aaron. And and they didn't seem to understand that these positions Moses and Aaron held were appointed by God. And the reason they didn't understand that well enough is because, do you remember when God spoke to the children of Israel? What did the children of Israel say? We don't want him to speak to us anymore. When he speaks, we get scared. So you speak to him on our behalf. Well, that's fine. You've appointed me to speak to them on your behalf, to speak to God on your behalf. So now I'm going to end up being, personally, I would say I see this coming, that they're going to not listen to me and feel justified that they didn't hear directly from you, but they told you they don't want you to speak to them because you scare them. In other words, there's accountability probably in there. And just as you walk into the presence of God, and as Ezekiel walks into his presence, as John the apostle walks into his presence, as anybody and everybody that comes into the presence of God is awestruck and basically lying face on the floor. Just the speech of God has the same effect, and they do not want to deal with someone with that sound. You go back and look at it at some point. Now this is the first instance of it being recorded, so it's going to be referred to later. So Korah basically represents rebellion, and there's a lot here, more than I'm going to cover in this little parashat I'm doing here. So our portion reading, or whatever we're calling it, and what's interesting, you start seeing God making statements again, like well, let me pick out a couple of them. Separate yourselves from among this congregation that I may consume them in a moment. I mean, he is ready to straighten the thing out. And since the first issue was a rebellion against Moses, Moses really wasn't in a position to speak up for them like he would, as strongly as he could have. However, what happens right after that, after God judges Korah and basically consumes a great deal of the camp with an opening in the ground and dropping, and they say that God did a special work, and so that they would know that it was him that was doing it, that he killed them they didn't die in an ordinary fashion. They died in a very strange way, a way they had never seen before. So this really made a mark on their hearts. And well, what happens right after that? The people say, they say that God is killing all of our. I don't know. No, they say Moses and Moses and God. I think they blame. I think it was primarily Moses. He says, on the next day, all the congregation of the children of Israel complained against Moses and Aaron, saying, "You have killed the people of the Lord." So now they're complaining that because of the actions of Moses and Aaron, these people have died. They're still not getting the idea that this is not Moses and Aaron. This is the Lord God who is speaking to Moses and Aaron, and these things are going on. So this time, when that refrain comes up, and God says to Moses, and Aaron says, "Get away from among this congregation, that I may consume them in a moment." and they fell on their faces. So Moses said to Aaron, take a censer and put fire in it from the altar, put incense on it and take it quickly to the congregation, for wrath has gone out from the Lord. The plague has begun. Then Aaron took it as Moses commanded and ran into the midst of the assembly. And already the plague had begun among the people. So he put in the incense, made an atonement for the people, and he stood between death and the dead and the living, and so the plague was stopped. So here, Aaron and Moses is basically pleading for the lives of the entire community. And so this rebellion is just an unbelievable thing to me. The way they rebel about rebellion. I mean, they rebel, God deals with rebellion, and then then they rebel about being dealt with the rebellion, and they just they keep digging themselves some deeper. And the Lord, that's the chapter 17 of Numbers is our reading. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the children of Israel and get them a rod from each father's house. Now what happens here is they go out and they collect these, we would assume they're willow, what is it, willow branch that has a little white blossom on it. And so each one of these houses contributed a willow branch that is apparently large enough to mark the family's name on. And they stacked these up in the tabernacle. And God said, well, God didn't say anything to them. God's talking to Moses. Remember, the people don't want to talk to him. He's scary to them. So Moses does this, and then it's explained to the people that here are all these willow branches. Now you're going to know yourself whether God picked Aaron for this position or not to run the priest and the operation of the priest. And so that seems pretty reasonable. Everybody puts something in the pot and they get to pick out what it is and they mark who they want on it. And they set it in front of God on the floor of the tabernacle. And then they wait. And sure enough, the Aaron's rod is the one that blooms. And so a miracle is basically performed to show that this is God's work and this is who he has picked, and quit arguing about who's going to be boss and why you should be boss and why they're not boss. And so I'm going to skip back over. Now, that's when we're talking about the rebellions that are dealt with strongly, primarily as they are coming out of Egypt and coming to establish Israel, and they're still wandering in the deserts and still doing the things that we are looking at to establish the Torah. First 5 books of what it's called the Old Testament is also the first 5 books are the Torah, are the Pentateuch, all right. And so now we come a little bit after that, we start being ruled by kings. And actually, not immediately after. Immediately after that, we're kind of in a place where the prophets are the ones that are working with God as mediators between God and the people, because they're still not in a personal relationship like he wants, like is required. And so here comes now. It says right here, Samuel. This is a coronation of Saul. So they finally decided on somebody they wanted, and they told God they told Moses to tell God that they want this individual as king. And so now, therefore, here is the king whom you have chosen and whom you have desired, and take note, the Lord has set a king over you. If he's not telling him yet whether he likes it or not very strongly, but you get the idea. Now therefore, here's the king whom you have chosen and whom you have desired, and take note, and the Lord has set a king over you. If you fear the Lord, in other words, we're still dealing between you and God, even though you got a king over here. By the way, the king's always in a small K. So if you fear the Lord and serve him and obey his voice and do not rebel against the commandment of the Lord, then both you and the king who reigns over you will continue following, will continue following the Lord. However, if you do not obey the voice of the Lord, but rebel against the commandment of the Lord, then the hand of the Lord will be against you as it was against your fathers. Here, what I see from this is, I as a member of this community, just added another avenue of punishment. Now I don't have to worry about just what I'm doing. I have to worry about what the king's doing. And the king's not, the king's answerable to God. And here it shows that he's equally answerable to God as he is to us. And we're answerable for everything he does, the king. So, and let me see how quick that hurts him. Oh, the next few verses. The next few verses, they realize right away that this very idea of asking for a king, they've messed up. And all the people said to Samuel, who was the priest who anointed, because God told him that he should go on and anoint him. So Samuel called to the Lord, and the Lord sent thunder and rain that day, and all the people greatly feared the Lord and Samuel. So they got double trouble now. So they have to deal with Samuel, and if he does something wrong, they got to pay for his sin, and then pay for their personal behavior too. And all the people said to Samuel, "Pray for your servants to the Lord your God, that we may not die. For we have added to all of our sins the evil of asking a king for ourselves." Then Samuel said to the people, "Do not fear. You have not done all this wickedness yet. It says, you have done all this wickedness yet. You do not turn aside from following the Lord, but serve the Lord with all your heart." So these issues with the king is a different thing. In fact, I find it pretty amazing that God's really not concerned about his competition with Saul for any type of sovereign reign over the people. He's kind of looking at Saul as, well, Saul, if you ask me, if you deal with me as you should on behalf of them, it's going to work out pretty good for you. If you don't, it's going to turn out bad for you and them. So anyway, so they right away start off things not doing it the way it needs to be done, and creating a whole bunch of additional problems for themselves. And God settled it way back in our reading with the budding of the budding of the branches. Now remember, Aaron's budded branch is a part of the contents of the Ark of the Covenant. And so I'm interested to see if it's still budded in there when they open it up and we look in there. That's the most interesting thing for me about that, because this is not a piece of plant material that's connected to any sources. Its only source is the presence of God. The presence of God is its source. So I'm betting it's going to be still budded. And I bet it's going to look pretty good. It might look even better than it did when it went in. And so I know that's kind of a flash through the rebellion part, but I thought it was really cool to connect this rebellion all the way through where, and then another part in there I didn't read was, I didn't share with you, was that this thing about the Levites getting the hand-me-downs from Aaron and his priests. It doesn't go over well with the religious order that they had going on there. So anyway, I hope that was helpful in explaining at least my idea and view of what I read. Thank you. Amen.